Hello! Hi guys! In today's update, it has been requested many times. It's a January update. It's everything that you need to know for like January travel. Will there be changes in travel protocols? And e-travel or what's your pre-departure checklist? Has it changed? I'm just gonna go jump into the travel rules. There have been talks on reviewing it, updating it, making it stricter. Why? Why are they talking about changing the protocols for since February, we haven't had quarantine as long as you're fully vaccinated. And then towards the end of last year, they removed quarantine for the unvaccinated. So far, really, the protocol is just now that if you're unvaccinated, you need to show a negative test result. Now, will they be stricter? Will that change that? Huh. Why are you talking about changing it in the first place? Because of what's going on in China. I think you guys heard of it. They have reopened. After almost 3 years of living in a cocoon, China is reopening its country, letting its people travel again, despite of their unprecedented surge in cases. Like news says hospitals there are struggling with influx of patients. I mean, if you think about it, they've cut off themselves from the whole world. We, the rest of the world, have been exposed to Omicron, but not them. So we have this large population that's not exposed to Omicron like before. So countries from around the world are stepping up to protect themselves from the surge or outbreak that's going on in China. And given the lack of transparency of China earlier in the pandemic, many countries are operating in the assumption that they are not being transparent. They're not showing all information. One of the first countries to impose pre-departure test requirements for travelers from China is the US. Like a lot of country actually, there were a few. So in the US, guys, I know a lot of you are there. If you are going back to the US, the new rule from CDC is that if you are 2 years old and above, you're traveling to the United States, you're coming from China, Hong Kong, or Macau, and those traveling from Seoul, Toronto, and Vancouver who have been in China, Hong Kong, or Macau for the past 10 days need to get tested. And that is a negative test result taken no more than 2 days before your flight departs. Or if you've recently recovered from COVID, you can show proof of documentation recovery for the past 90 days. Again, the pre-departure test to the US only applies to travelers from China, Hong Kong, or Macau, or travelers from Seoul, Toronto, and Vancouver with travel history from China, Hong Kong, and Macau for the past 10 days. So I think this is unique to the US. They included people with travel history for the past 10 days. No, if you're coming from Seoul, Toronto, and Vancouver. Aside from that, the US CDC is also reconsidering, telling its own citizens to reconsider travel to China. Now, what if you travel to the Philippines and you're going back to the US? You're flying with, let's say, Cathay Pacific. You have a layover in Hong Kong. Are you affected by the new pre-departure test requirement? No, guys, if it's only a transit, you're just staying inside the airport of Hong Kong, there is no need to get tested. Again, if it's only a transit, you will not get cleared by the Hong Kong immigration, things like that. No need to get tested. UK has the same pre-departure test requirement for travelers from China 12 years old and above. France as well. Australia, Canada, and South Korea, Israel, Qatar, Italy, and Spain. So there is actually a growing number of countries reimposing pre-departure test requirements for travelers from China. Meanwhile, the Philippines is monitoring the situation. Two senators have called on the government to reimpose restrictions. Senator Paul called for proactive policies because in the past we've been late. No, we didn't impose travel ban quickly for China in early in 2020. She's calling the government, DOH, IATF to decide definitely on the matter and inform all travelers beforehand. Oh yeah, if you're gonna put something, if you're gonna impose restriction, you need to let the travelers know like 2 weeks, a week before. Considering the history of IATF, they're not very good at that. They like to do last minute announcements. Um, the Bureau of Immigration actually says we are ready. If ever the IATF decides to impose restrictions, yep, we're ready anytime to implement any such measures. I was actually surprised for the immigration to issue that release. Hmm. I mean, IATF guys is still the one making the calls, orders. I know they've been quiet. They're not as powerful as they were in 2020 and 2021, pero they're still there. They're just not as powerful. Meanwhile, recently, 8 passengers, unvaccinated Filipinos from China tested positive. Big deal? It shouldn't be big deal. We have more, I mean, every day there are people with COVID traveling into the country. Most of them probably are fully vaccinated because they haven't been tested. How can they be detected, diba? For all we know, we've all had COVID. But what's concerning in China really is that if ever there is a different variant that emerges, no, not Omicron, but something, that's the main concern. But with what's going on right now, the Department of Health says border controls must cover all countries. They issued a memorandum last December 31 asking or calling on different agencies to step up in the implementation of border controls in all ports of entry. Department of Health, OIC, Maria Vorheres said it shouldn't just cover China because everywhere in the world there are surges going on. So we have to have these border controls, heightened monitoring for all countries. Well, what does that mean? Not much, guys. There will be no tighter restrictions even from travelers for China. Wala naman. It's just basically upon arrival, they will intensify screening, temperature checks, ganun lang po. So it's really best, as I said it many times before, not to travel if you're sick, if you have fever, drink medicine, take care of yourself. Talagang, well, take care of yourself. Don't get sick as much as possible. So far, with the cases in the Philippines, we've had surges for the past 6 months, but they've been weaker and weaker every time. For this year, we report like 500 cases a day for 2023. That's a very low risk. So, I mean, no, China, the surge in China is really driven by Omicron. So that's not a big concern for us Philippines or the rest of the world because we've been exposed to that. I like what Father Austriarco said of Octa Research. He said, why worry about a bucket of water? The virus is from China. When we already have a huge swimming pool here in the Philippines with the viruses circulating among Filipinos. In fact, the president last December 31 already lifted the state of calamity. It expired and he did not extend it. He said we are not in a state of calamity anymore, technically speaking. The world has moved on and hopefully COVID will too. So, in summary guys, I know this is what you want to hear. When it comes to travel, there is no change on the rules yet. So, this is what you need for pre-departure testing. You only need to take a test if you are unvaccinated. If you're fully vaccinated, you got 2 shots or you got 1 shot of J&J, no need to get tested. Booster is not required, it's not counted anymore. The unvaccinated, partially vaccinated, 15 years old and above, or children traveling with unvaccinated parent or guardian still need to be tested. And there are 2 options for that. Either an RT-PCR taken within 48 hours before departure or a rapid antigen test taken within 24 hours before departure. Again, the basis is departure. There are still people asking or worried, I'm coming from the US or from Europe. I'm traveling more than 24 hours. I can't take the test. It would be expired by the time I arrive. Again, guys, the basis is departure, not arrival. Moving on, e-travel. Is there a big change on e-travel? Not really, guys. A big change. Let's see. Recently, I noticed when you go to e-travel, before you could only register 3 to 4 days before departure, but now I think, yeah, they made it shorter because now the basis is the arrival time or date. So let me actually go to e-travel website, etravel.gov.ph. I want to show you. Okay. The first question, are you a Philippine passport holder or foreign? Let's go with Philippine. Transportation type, air. And then date of arrival. As you can see here, today is January 10. If your flight is on January 14, you can register as early as today. So you have like 4 days before arrival to register. Mhm. So that's really it, the big change with e-travel. Don't worry, I will guys make a tutorial video again just for e-travel. But for now, what I can share to you straightforward is that the change is that you are given 4 days before arrival to register. Or another option is to register upon arrival, which is actually not cute, not the best idea. Trust me, you don't want to spend extra 20 or 30 minutes at a busy airport after a long haul flight. You just want to go quickly exit the airport. So, register at the comfort of your own home. Don't do it upon arrival. Do it before you go to the airport. Do it at your comfort of your own home. Register to e-travel before arriving in the Philippines. And again, registration should be done individually. You need to register children as well. Okay, all passengers must register. etravel.gov.ph. So in summary, this is your pre-departure checklist. If you're a fully vaccinated Filipino, ang kailangan nyo lang po yung vaccination card ninyo at e-travel. More likely, hindi na hinahanap yung vaccination. Nung ako umuwi, I showed my e-travel, and yun lang. They scan it, and that's it. I was done like in 5 seconds. And I asked, don't you want to see my vaccination card? He said, nah. So, while for unvaccinated Filipinos, again, you need negative test result. Look, pwede naman magpa-test upon arrival. Yun nga lang, what if mag-positive ka? Then, you end up in quarantine. And if you're not an OFW pa, you get to spend, to pay for all the expenses. Walang libre kung hindi ka OFW. Imagine the expense. It is a much rather safer and better if you get tested at your country of origin. Next up, e-travel, of course. If you're unvaccinated, your e-travel would look like this. It'll be red. Don't worry about that. That's completely fine. If you have a negative test result and you have no symptoms, no quarantine. Next up, for balikbayans, those covered by balikbayan privilege, former Filipinos, foreign spouse, and foreign children of Filipinos traveling with them. If you want to make sure that you get that balikbayan stamp, 1-year visa-free entry and stay in the country, bring your old Filipino passport or a Philippine birth certificate. For the spouse, a marriage certificate. For a child, a birth certificate. Jennifer, they never ask for these things. They just give us the balikbayan stamp. Yeah, perfect. That is true. Very common na hindi naman talaga hinahanap. Pero, in case maghanap, if you have it, then walang issue. Moving on, for foreign nationals, especially foreign tourists, bring your vaccination card or certificate if you're fully vaccinated. A digital or printed copy is fine, as long as it's readable. And then e-travel QR code, a return ticket or onward ticket. This may be asked by the airline or the immigration if you're coming in the country visa-free. They don't always ask, but if they do, they're in the right position to ask it for you because it is actually one of the requirements for entry. So, if you're coming in visa-free, more likely you're only given 30 days stay. So, you must show a return or onward ticket within 30 days. It's just a proof that you will not overstay. Next up, passport must be more than 6 months valid. That's a general rule. Next up, for unvaccinated foreigners, you may enter the country without quarantine as long as you can show proof of a negative test result, either RT-PCR or antigen test. And then e-travel, return and onward ticket, and then passport must be more than 6 months valid. So that is really about it for travel to the Philippines right now. No major change, but we'll keep an eye on what's going on in China. Hopefully, no variant of concern will emerge. 2023, we're so done with restrictions. So that's all I can share for today. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in with me and be patient. I know I haven't been active for the past month or weeks. Yeah, your girl has been busy. Anyways, God bless you all, guys. And if you have anything to add, your own experience, comment down below. I will see you with another travel update. Bye bye.